Hey, welcome to Red River Podcast. Today we're gonna, celebrate the year 1993, which is 30 years from, I guess today, which is fucking wild. So yeah, we're already in mid conversation here. Welcome back, Brant.
Thank you for having me.
Hey.
Appreciate it.
How's life in Chicago? Dry hot.
Life's pretty good. Yeah, restaurants are doing pretty well coming out of the pandemic. We're doing decently, not like setting the world on fire, but everywhere we're busy, and it's been a really mild winter here, which has been kind of nice. I mean, I
Mhm.
love the snow, but it has been nice to not wake up to -20 every January and February.
Yeah, the snow is
Yeah,
cool. The snow is cool, like when you like look out the window for like a minute, it's like, oh, that's cool. But then if you could kind of like quickly like turn the page and not like shovel or like see the disgusting like brown black snow that comes with it, it's just like,
I love it and I miss it, and I find like
Yeah.
my immortal and Dark Throne and Emperor listens were way down this winter. There's no Norwegian black metal in my ears
Yeah.
this winter. I need the whole ambiance.
Yeah, it's
You
been
know
a
what I
lot
mean?
of
Any
reggae this winter, reggae and jam bands.
any new beers coming? You got
Yeah,
floating out
well,
there in
we're
the
actually so World Beer Cup is happening this year, which is the largest uh, judging contest for beer in the world, I think. So that's in Nashville. So we haven't attended that in or sent beer to be judged since 2019, I think. So it's been a 3 or 4 year hiatus. So we're actually sending beer down for judging for all three breweries. So hopefully we get something. We have gotten stuff. We've never gotten a World Beer Cup award, but we've gotten Great American Beer Festival awards in the past. So it'd be nice to add one of those. And yeah, we're going to start canning. So in April we're going to start canning our beer. So I can get some beer back to you in New York. I know Sam will
nice.
partake,
hell
but
yeah. If you have any
Any uh any metal names? Any metal names you're using?
Um, not
I
really.
always
So
loved
I've
your
so I've sort of taken over operations of the three breweries. So I've got head brewers at each location. So it's mostly their beers now.
Gotcha.
So one of the beer that's going into can is going to be called Wizard Fight, and that's named after a
Guns N- Gu- I thought it was
Weed
Guns N'
Eater album.
Roses. Oh, okay. Weed Eater. Okay. My
Yeah.
friends play with them.
Oh yeah.
I have a friend in a band called Rebel Matic. He's been on the show, and I'm pretty sure Weed
Yeah, they're
Eater's
at a
in.
North Carolina, South Carolina area, I think.
I don't know. I just know that like they've been doing some tours with them lately. So very
Yeah,
cool.
really good doomy, sludgy, southern twinge to it. Really, they've been around forever. Yeah, and so
Nice.
that's exciting. So, but yeah, we have not done any collaborations with any metal bands
Cool.
recently. The whole collaboration thing has sort of been waning a little bit with the
Yeah.
whole pandemic and everything, and nobody wanting to get together for years and be on site and
Right.
stay you're 6 feet apart and all that
Right.
crap. So,
Mm.
but it's starting to come back, so maybe we'll start reaching out. Um, we do have obituaries playing. I did buy a house in Chicago, and I'm right near the Metro, which is a pretty famous venue in Chicago. A lot of bands broke, Pumpkins and Metallica played there in '83 on the Kill 'Em All tour. So I'm like a quarter mile from that venue. So obituaries coming there, and I think Emperor's coming there. Um,
Yeah, Emperor's making the rounds. They're playing Brooklyn, I think, too.
yeah.
And
So I might.
Obituary has very strong Long Island ties because they work with a friend of mine out of Ronkonkoma.
Oh, really?
His name's Joe. I think he did the record for them, the new record, and he does their live sound.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
New record slays too.
Yeah, I
It's
heard the new
awesome.
record's great. I've only listened to it once, but I really dug it.
I
So
saw them with Black Label, and it's amazing. The singer, I mean, Sam, did you go to that show with me?
I was there and they blew me the fuck away.
I couldn't believe that singer. Then he sounds, I mean, he's got to be, in his late
He's got to be
50s
up
or
there, yeah.
whatever. And his voice sounds perfect for death metal. Like it sounds exactly like it did. And like nobody knew how to take care of your voice back then. So he was amazing. That
He sounded amazing. Like it just blew me away. That was the first time I saw
yeah,
Obituary. But
Me too.
anyway, I'm actually playing a brewery later on today in New
Yeah, I
Jersey.
saw that. I saw it somewhere in Jersey, right?
Yep,
Maybe a
yep.
playing dead dry hop
Yeah.
collapse. I smell right now.
Yeah.
You come out to
Ooh.
Chicago, yeah, we'll do it. You come out to Chicago, we'll do it.
I'm ready. I'm
Right.
ready. All right. So, I wanted to just basically, touch upon certain things, albums and movies from 1993. It doesn't have to be favorites. There's just certain things, like maybe 5 albums and 5 movies that you want to bring up, or that maybe you want to talk about on this episode, especially since 30 years allows you time to really get into it. Maybe there's a movie that you didn't like when it came out, and through the time it got better, which I have some on my list. Also, I just want to really point out real quick. So I was like 15. These are 6 things that I remember from 1993. Ready? Shout out to Marge Schott for being like the first canceled white lady of baseball.
Shout
That
out
was
to
in
Billy West too.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you
Oh
don't know
yeah.
Marge Shot, Google
Yeah, you're
Billy
right.
West, Marge Shot, Howard Stern. That was one of his best voices.
So the also 2 super tragic things: the World Trade Center, the first bombing was in 93, I remember.
Yeah.
And then Waco, which now they make TV shows about. That was one of the things. Also Alec Baldwin getting in trouble for firing a gun. I don't even understand how he's at fault if he's thinking he's firing like a fake gun. But that was also Brandon Lee 30
Oh
years
yeah.
ago. That's when it
Yeah,
Crow.
happened.
yeah.
Yeah, Crow. Great
Uh,
soundtrack.
Awesome soundtrack.
Here's a show I've been watching every day because Pluto has a Cheers channel, and the
Yeah.
last episode of Cheers aired in 1993.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. I thought that was later.
me too, right? Yeah.
I thought that was like 97 or man.
93 seems
Maybe I'm thinking
so.
Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Mm.
And the last thing I have is also another docu-series that came out, the Lorena Bobbitt thing, when she cut off her husband's dick.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, which was super fascinating and tragic. And when did you guys watch the thing on Prime on her?
I didn't.
No, it's still in my queue.
It's very
I
good.
don't know when
It's
I'm gonna watch it. Yeah.
Wasn't Stern her first interview, or one of her first interviews was with
Well,
Stern also?
John was on
John
Stern
was
a few times before his promoting
Oh,
his
okay.
his
Franken
porn.
penis porno or whatever the fuck
Yeah,
it was.
yeah.
Was that what it was called? Franken penis,
Yeah,
I think.
so like when you really break down like the doc, it's interesting because John Bob is kind of like a buffoon, and like you really kind of like feel for like whatever Lorena was going through. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, she did like mutilate his fucking penis, which is probably a few steps way too far. But you get more insight into this story, kind of like with the Pam and Tommy Lee thing, where you're like, oh shit,
Mm.
like you didn't really like, now anything that happens in the news now, like you get like it's like a toothpaste fucking thing. Like you wring out every bit of toothpaste in it. Back then, you didn't
Sure.
really have all this information. Now it's like people will make
Hmm.
docu-series on all that stuff. So these are the things that I remember. Anything in 93 specifically that you guys remember besides drugs?
Yeah. Um, yeah, it was sort of definitely a transition year for me. I had just been kicked out of college for the second time and was like,
Ha, nice.
basically, what the F am I going to do with my life? And started bartending, which I became a bartender basically for 12 years before I became a brewer and didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with my life. So it was sort of, but I was also like, not to say that metal was dead in the 90s, but it was on life support, that's for sure. So I was definitely transitioning more into like hip hop and alternative. And uh I mean, the only thing I mean, I think Pantera flew the flag for metal in the
They did.
90s.
Yeah,
And
they
then the
did.
rest was
And
like the Metallica, not I look back on it now and I look back on the Black Album as being like an amazing rock album, but it's not a metal album. Um, Same with like Megadeth with the Symphony of Destruction. They sort of went down the same path of selling out, and even to a degree with Testament, with Practice What You Preach, and Ozzy with No More Tears, and being more ballad forward. And So like 93, like that was started about 91 with the whole uh grunge and Nirvana, which I mean I really think it started in 87 with the beginning of the death knell of hair metal with Appetite for Destruction coming out and sort of setting the
It's
tone for what's to come.
it's still hung in there for sure,
Yeah.
but I mean, like, listen, we're talking about albums that came out, like, this was the year of definitely like alternative rock. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you had records like the Posies, like random ass shit like that,
Yeah.
the Breeders. Then you had hip hop records like Midnight Marauders. Like, everything that we were getting thrown at was like legendary. So it made sense where like these bands, like you said, Metallica was like, oh, okay, I guess we're just gonna make Load now or something.
Yeah.
And like, where Pantera progressively got heavier. They're
Yeah, it
just
was
like, okay,
crazy.
we're gonna
Yeah.
just, we're just gonna get heavier. And these other bands are like, okay, I'm gonna write Sweating Bullets now. And everyone's like, all
Yeah.
right, I guess this is what it is now.
Well,
Yeah, I
that's
mean, I
how
know
those.
there was a ton of black metal and a ton of like death metal floating around
I
in the
was just
early
gonna
90s.
say that was the if you were into death or black, which I didn't get into till later on, going
Yeah,
back
me
to
either.
some of those artists. Um, that was their glory days of the early on parts of black metal and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Was all in that early '90s. So really, underground metal was thriving then. But I wasn't really fucking with it so much, and like Brand, I was kind of drifting away from it. Uh,
Well,
and it was just, I remember that time was just so great. And when people talk about some of the best times in music history, I always say the early '90s might have been the best for, and not just because it was like, the wheelhouse of my 20s and, that time where everything is great and
well,
vibrant and stuff like that. But there was a time where really artists with integrity were actually selling units too. Like there was a point in time where you had Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden, like at the top of Billboard, and doing like the public came to them really. Then they had to like soften their sound to get accepted.
well,
Yeah, and
be,
with no
be,
singles really. I mean,
Right.
nothing like I guess Black Hole Sun was huge in 94, but I don't think it cracked the top 10, did it? I mean, it cracked a lot of airplay, but like I don't
it,
think any of those songs ever cracked the top 10
no, but
ever.
it
Super
was
Unknown, they had a lot on there, but I don't think like Bad Motor Finger and shit.
Yeah.
Like they didn't, except for Jesus Christ Pose, and then
no,
well,
no.
you know what, Outshine really broke.
Outshine was the one that
Yeah,
broke them, but it was like a
that's true.
Buzzbin thing. But still,
Yeah.
like the thing with that was like, even what we're talking about was curation. MTV, when we're sitting at home, not going to work, not doing anything other than just like kind of like hanging out at home with our friends with TV on, MTV was on, and they were doing a really good job at curating that stuff. So it was
Mhm.
constantly in front of you where you were just like, oh, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool.
Thank you,
Now it's
Dave Kendall.
Yeah.
yeah, to thank you, John the Sense Man Sensio. So yeah, as much as people want to shit on MTV now, they were a very, very powerful big part of what was going on, for
Yeah.
sure. All right, so let's do some albums since we're talking about music, and then we'll do the movies last. So yeah, I picked 5 albums. I would say 3 of them that I definitely listened to at that point, 2 that I didn't till later on, but they came out in '93, where I'm just like, you know what? I
Hmm.
really should have listened to these. So our guest, Brant, yeah, just give me your whatever you have listed as number 5.
Yeah, so this is definitely, I agree with you, Sam. This is one that caught my attention later on down the road. This is definitely, I definitely don't even think I listened to this album once in 1993, but probably around 97, 98, I started listening to these guys. And it's from Sleep, a doom metal band, and it's Sleep's Holy Mountain.
Very
Epic.
cool. Yeah, yeah. Is that where that guy Matt Pike is from?
Yeah, Matt Pike's the
Yeah.
guitarist, and Al Cisneros from and
High on Fire, is that the same
yeah,
guy? Yeah.
yeah, High on
Hmm.
Fire is Matt Pike.
Cool.
But yeah, like a lot of great songs, Dragging Out and the Druid, and like the early stages of Doom, just like professing their love to Sabbath, all things Sabbath, and They went on to they became famous for doing, getting signed to a major label, getting a $75,000 advance, and putting out a 60-minute single, Dope
Ah,
Smoker. And
that's great.
they spent $25,000 or $50,000 on British tube amps to record, and then the other 25,000 on weed is what the famous story is.
I
And
fucking
then
love that.
and then the label refused to release it until and then now they're signed to Jack White's label, Third Man Records.
Oh,
Wow.
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Jack White does a lot of cool stuff, because that White Stripe money was so big that now he could
Yeah.
just do whatever the fuck he wants. Langan, give me something from your list.
I went with, some of these, like I tried to, most of it is stuff I really listened to then, but, and some of it is just stuff I want to talk about because I'm sure it didn't make the poll that we were doing and whatnot. And so I'm going to put Porno for Pyro's self-titled record,
Yeah.
actually. It's really the last good piece of music that Perry Farrell has ever. Well, I shouldn't say that. There was like two cuts maybe on the follow up, their
I really
second
like
record
that
maybe.
second one. That Tahitian Moon song on the follow up
Tahitian
is
Moon's a
fucking
great song,
amazing.
but I really think this works as a whole album better.
Yeah.
And uh, there's just they played with a lot of arrangements they didn't do in Jane's. I think Stephen Perkins is one of the most underrated percussionists, I think,
Yeah.
in hard rock and whatnot, and he really shines on that record. A lot of toms and bongos and all this shit, and long stretched out psychedelia and uh, like Orgasm, that was one of my favorite
Yeah.
songs towards the end. Cursed Female, that they had the single, I think is a great fucking rock
It's
song.
Great video.
that
Great
video.
video.
So that video, speaking of MTV, was fucking eye-catching immediately. But
Oh
also
yeah.
like the music was so like it was
It
just
was
like
sinister
nothing
almost.
I've ever heard. And you know who stars in that video?
Buck Angel?
Buck Angel. Yeah.
It is
Buck
Buck Angel.
Buck Angel
Fun
before
fact for you kids, Google.
yeah, yo, Google Buck Angel for
Google
sure.
it and hit images.
So
And
yeah,
while it was played out a lot, but Pets, great fucking pop song,
on
fucking
lyrically great
yeah.
stuff. Like
Yeah.
lyrically really cool. There's great stuff on there. I'm glad that
I love
they
when people do a song of pop sensibility, but really a dark subject matter to it,
yeah.
about being enslaved basically by aliens and whatnot. It's kind of
Yeah.
dystopian, but it's a
Uh
fun pop song as well.
but also they just did a reunion for the first time in forever in Chicago.
Yeah, they
Oh
did.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
played Metro also, like
Lollapalooza, I think.
after Lollapalooza, yeah.
Yeah.
We went to see them with Flaming Lips,
Yeah.
right? Was that what you said?
Roseland.
Yeah.
Yeah. God
Yep.
bless
Great,
Roseland.
great fucking
Yeah,
song.
and I
Great band.
remember I love that album. Don't get me wrong; it was absolutely in 1993. It was probably in my top five, without a doubt, of albums I listened to in '93. But I just remember walking out of Roseland after the show, being like, "Why didn't they fucking play any Jane's Addiction? This is fucking ridiculous."
Sure.
Oh yeah. I think it was one of those moves like that was my other
Yeah,
band, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
he was
I get it. I get it for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And also I do want to say Tahitian Moon's a great song. The rest of the album sucks.
yeah.
That's
I
about it.
can't disagree with that.
All right. So I
Even
picked
the stuff when he got back together with Jane, sorry, just like that shit is not
That
great either,
straight, yeah,
man.
that
You know.
album's horrible.
There's two records they put out after the Strays, and then there was another one, The Great Escape Artist or something. They're both
Yeah,
fucking boring as fuck,
and yeah,
man.
they're on the Entourage freaking theme song. Come on.
Ugh, ugh, fucking stupid show. Anyway, Sam, what do you got there?
so number 5, I picked an album that I probably listened to 4 or 5 years after it came out. So Catherine Wheel, Chrome. Amazing.
Great album.
Really cool stuff. Just like, what I really loved about the 90s was just like that heavy guitar, but like the melodies were so great. So many good songs on this. And most importantly, Rob Dickinson is Bruce Dickinson's nephew, I believe, the singer. So
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
that's always an interesting connection. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a couple of good records in the.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mike Malarmo too. I think he's a big Catherine Wheel guy. Still
Yeah.
here flying a
Well,
flag, but
so Ferment was the one before this that had Black Metallic, which was kind of
Yeah,
like
Black
a pop
Metallic's
group,
great album.
which was
Great
like,
song.
Sure.
but it was just like super heavy guitar. It was like the Lineage. Well, I wouldn't say Lineage, but their peers were like Radiohead, where it's like this like crazy shit. And but like the melodies and the songs were so like pretty, and like the leads were so like very, very cool. Okay, so let's do another one from your list, Brant.
Number 4, Houdini by the Melvins, or Melvins. I guess they don't like to be called the. Um, just getting this definitely was an album I listened to in '93. Mostly I bought it because Cobain produced it, or infamously didn't produce it because he was too strung out. And basically Buzz Osborne had to produce it because Cobain wouldn't show up, or he would show up and be smacked out of his mind. And um, but just an amazing album cover. I love the Two-Headed Dog album cover, like, and just nice. Another, I guess I'm continuing with my sludgy, doomy list, and just their major label debut, I believe. And I think it set the stage for like Stoner Witch coming next, which was like just a straight up like Sabbath, like we love Sabbath and this is it. And got him on the major label, just like pretty much every Seattle and Washington band was back then. And just, I think it took off mostly because it had Cobain's name on it, but it's still put it on a regular rotation all the time.
I like that he occasionally still throws Nirvana jabs here and there. You know, they seem to have, you know, some sort of relationship back then.
His best jabs are to, if I mean, I'm sure we all have, but if no one's read the his accounts of touring with Rob, I think White Zombie or Rob Zombie. You
Yeah,
ever? It's so
yeah,
fucking funny. Still
yeah.
funny.
So Rock and Roll Stories, that channel on YouTube, they
Yeah.
do brilliant work. This guy is a so he had a segment on that, and it's very, very good.
Yeah, and it's like he's like pretty much the antithesis of Cobain too. He's just straight edge, I think, and Buzz
Yeah, so
Osborne's a straight edge and doesn't do any alcohol, any drugs, anything. And like to pair that, like I mean, I guess Cobain was in the Melvins for a second back in the early '90s, and then, but just to think of that scene and to think of everybody who died and everybody who was addicted to drugs and alcohol back then, and just have one of the bands that everyone that became big looked up to and not do any
I was gonna
drugs or
say
alcohol.
them Melvins and Mudhoney was those the bands that you heard everyone that
Yeah,
broke big wanted
yeah,
but
to like
also when you're trying
promote
to
they love.
when you're trying to work, and like you're the guy who's producing your record, obviously giving it the golden touch is like nodding off at the council or whatever, you know,
right.
on a console. Anyway, Langan.
This one did not listen to back in the day, but has become one of my favorite metal records of all time. Is Carcass's Heartwork. Um, Carcass is one, you know, started out very like grindy death metal, whatever, and they were always more not to shit on that genre and stuff, but they were always way more talented than just knocking off, you know, short little fucking songs or whatever. And this album was really a growing point of really they set a template for melodic death metal and incorporating some thrash, incredible guitar work, even some groove. Like the title track, Heartwork, has such groove to it. It's fucking amazing. But it's a landmark record in the genre, you know. And a lot of the early fans, of course, were probably bent, you know, but there was nothing wrong with polishing their edge and putting out this record. They probably view that like a Black album, like I view the Black album or something. They probably view this Carcass, but there's no denying this is one of the greatest metal records ever made in history.
It is great whenever you do have that comparison, you know, because the way some people do look at that album is like the Black album, you know, but it's so yeah, and the way
Yeah,
we look at the Black album is just like it's cool, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
uh so my next one is an album that I listened to back in 93, but I didn't really jump into the deep tracks until I don't know, you know, maybe like within the last 10-15 years. Pablo Honey by Radiohead. I remember getting the CD, and the song "You" was the opening track, and I was like, holy shit, this is so good. Like it was just like it had elements of just like super heavy guitar work with Tom York's like vocals and like the it almost had like strumming of certain Fugazi songs, you know. Honorable mention in on the Kill Taker, of course.
Yeah.
But Pablo Honey, when you really listen to the whole thing and get beyond Creep, anyone can play guitar. I can't. There's so many good songs. Thinking of You. Man, what a really, really good fucking rock guitar record. You know, far from wherever the fuck planet they're on right now, you know, with King of Limbs and all that other shit, which is whatever. But man, when you want like really well written songs, I feel like a lot of people went to the Bends, they went to OK Computer, they went to Kid A and ignored Pablo Honey. And in the
I definitely did.
re-listens, and yeah, and in the
Me too.
re-listens, and in the re-listens, you're like, wow, this like the deep cuts are really, really, really good. Especially the song "I Can't," which is like the song. It might be like the 10th song on the album or something. So anyway, that's my pick. So Brant, give me another one from your list.
Number 3, Anodyne by Uncle Tupelo. Um, the beginning, or I guess the early stages of the alt country movement of the 90s. I guess them and the Jayhawks were probably the forebearers.
Yep.
And then just splintered off into the two amazing groups after that, Wilco and Sunvolt. This is, again, I believe their major label debut, or maybe the acoustic one was before. But just killer tracks. Just I equate it to, especially now that I live in the Midwest, this is sort of like the alt country movement to me, to a degree. I think was like the Midwest's punk movement, other than I guess maybe Minneapolis, like sort of like
Yeah.
the punk movement from the East Coast and the West Coast. Like they were wearing flannel long before Seattle, and if you listen to it, it's definitely got that freaking tinge of punk rock attitude in it, with slide guitars and pedal steel, and
You're right.
it's just a beautiful album.
I would equate it to like the Husker Du's and replacements of like the, you know, Minneapolis, like that, like, you know, the like Uncle Tupelo. Although later on in life, when I got into Wilco, and I tried to go backwards, it's a little bit too much not like, you know, certain bands from that like the old 97s or whatever that I like.
Yeah.
But I respect it, and I think that's definitely a good pick for sure. Langdon, give me something from your list.
I have debut by Bjork. Um,
Big Jerk.
I think Bjork. For me, I love Bjork. Always respect Bjork, especially because she is fearless to trying new shit. But for me, the early, I love the Sugar Cubes and the early Bjork albums that were more accessible. There's nothing wrong with being accessible sometimes for her. And this record was, she really had her finger on the pulse of a sound of that current time, with a lot of electronic stuff being incorporated in the mix, embracing like club shit, like even like the Big Time Sensuality, which was a big hit for her. Remember the video, black and white, her dancing on the back of the flatbed in Manhattan and whatnot. And uh, with remixes by David Morales and Masters at Work and all this shit. She just was on it. Like the sound of the moment, the down tempo stuff, like "Come to Me," which has like, you know, a Massive Attack, tricky kind of vibe to it. It's just a well produced record of the times, and she sounds amazing on it. And I think Human Behavior, that's one of my favorite songs ever. Love the video too.
That's right. She dated Tricky and Goldie, so it's
I've
fucking
told
awesome.
the story when I saw them fight. I think I've told it on this
Oh
show.
yeah. I forgot. Yeah, maybe that's why I remember
Yeah,
it.
at the Roxy. At the Roxy, they were fighting. Goldie and Tricky fighting over Bjork.
Hey, listen, if you're
Front
gonna,
of in front of me and my friend, and I was like, "What the fuck is this really happening?" and shit. And then years later, talking on Facebook with her, she's like, "Do you remember that time?" I'm like, "Oh, thank God you just validated that memory," because I'm like, it was so bizarre. I don't know if it happened, but if you remember it, then I guess it did.
hey, if you're gonna fight over anyone, that's a good one, for
She
sure.
was so cute.
Yeah. All right. So my pick is an album. A lot of times this might be the album that I remember shifting me from following my friends down the Long Island hardcore, New York hardcore route. Gentleman by the Afghan Wigs. When I was watching MTV and I saw the song for video for Debonair, I was like blown away. It was like nothing I ever heard before. Even like the guitars, I was like trying to figure out the chords or the rhythms after like listening to like, Nirvana power chords or like riff rock. You're like, I don't even understand what they're doing.
Right.
But Debonair, Gentleman, so like the whole album is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Greg Dooley vocally
Such a good singer. Yeah.
unfucking believable, man. Um, big
Is
game changer.
Lanigan love.
Yeah,
He loves Mark Lanigan.
big
They did a
game.
record together.
The
Yeah.
gutter,
The
the
fuck
gutter
was the
Glimmer,
name of
twins.
Gutter
it?
Twins. Yeah.
Gutter
Glimmer
Twins. That
Twins or
was
Yeah.
the
it.
Gutter Twins.
I think the
Um,
Glimmer Twins were somebody else. Or is that the Toxic
Yeah.
Twins? Is that
oh,
Joe Perry and
yeah,
No, no, no. They were the
Yeah.
Toxic Twins.
yeah, they're the Toxic Twins.
Oh,
But yeah, man, Gentlemen, absolutely like a record that still holds up. Sometimes on a long drive, I'll just put that on from beginning to end because the songs melt into each other. There's like, these interludes that all connect with each other.
Yeah.
And
still putting out good shit too.
Yeah.
absolutely. So, all right, Brant, give me something.
Number two, Gentleman by the Afghan Wigs.
Oh,
Um, everything that Sam said is correct. It's just an amazing album. I mean, I love Dully's voice. I mean, his lyrics. I mean, Debonair. We'll go back to Debonair. I pulled it up because it don't bleed it don't breathe. It's locked its jaws and now it's swallowing. It's in our heart. It's in our head. It's in our love, baby. It's in our bed. Tonight I
Yeah.
go to hell for what I've done to you. This ain't about regret. It's when I tell the truth. I mean, that's just an amazing lyric. Like
Killer.
amazing.
Yeah, man. Cool. Yeah, that's I'm glad. Number two right there. I it could have easily been the top thing that I mentioned, but I feel like these five in particular for me are in no real order. Um,
yeah.
so Langan, number two.
I got Dinosaur Juniors. Where you been? It's my favorite Dinosaur Junior album. I'd probably
Wow,
say total.
interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I because of how it. I mean, listen, I actually love their new shit just as equally as their old shit and
Yeah.
stuff. But this album was just important for me in particular as far as getting into them. It was really because I was already listening to a lot of alternative and stuff, but I still came from a metal background, and Jay Mascis was a nice like, and he comes from a metal background too, so his guitar playing for me with the pop sensibilities, it just made a lot of sense for me at the time that I just couldn't get enough of his soloing and it's such a perfectly produced, amazing record, great hooks, uh, some aggressive shit and some like really mellow stuff. But it was just a good transition record for me at the time. And I saw them live a few times around then. I always thought they were terrible live, but this album is fantastic. It's a masterpiece to
Yeah,
me.
this one was important for us too. So like growing up, like my friend Bob, he has a Dinosaur Junior tattoo, so he got into them a little bit before. So we had that exposure. So I think Green Mind might be my favorite Dinosaur Jr. record, the one like I'm pretty sure right before
Mm-hmm.
this. And then there's a bunch of stuff before that was great. But this one, when it came out, I remember just watching Star Chop in the video. And I mean, we would just watch it all the time. It was just great. And to this day, whenever I'm like playing guitar or whatever, I'll do that riff, that opening riff,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a lot of fun to play. Yeah, man, great pick. So my number two is probably something maybe someone else has on their list. Siamese Dream, Smashing Pumpkins.
That's my
Uh,
number one.
yeah,
My
okay.
number one.
Is it okay? So then I'll wait to talk about it. So let's. Oh, so wait. So
We're at our number ones,
we're at
so we
number
would
one.
be.
So I'm
Well, I
gonna
know
do.
what your number one is. Then I know.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do
Yeah.
my number one, and then we'll talk about Siamese. So my number one is, and it could have easily been number 2 next to Siamese Dream, Quicksand Slip.
Yeah, it's my honorable mention.
When I heard the riff to Dine Alone, it was like nothing I've ever heard before. It was very dark, like just it was so heavy, but Walter's vocals made it like so perfect. He would like, jump in and out with the melody. Tom Capone on the leads, like he played so tastefully. Like if he played 3 notes, you just fucking felt it on every one of these songs. This album was very big for people who were kind of coming out of hardcore or looking for something like the next thing. And I think Slip was like, definitely on top of like the post-hardcore planet of the Helmets and the Handsomes and stuff like that. So Slip, my number 1 by Quicksand. So now let's talk about Siamese Dream, Brant.
Yeah, just actually bought this album with Langan and Pete Fisher at I believe it was the Wall at the time. I don't think it was Record World still. But Langan actually got me into the Pumpkins through Gish, and and I just love that album, and I just think this was just like the ultimate progression to like we're the best band on the planet. Like, don't mess with us. Like, we're the real deal. And every song from beginning to end is just amazing. Jimmy Chamberlain, in my opinion, is like up there with Danny Carey and Dave Lombardo's of the world. And it's just an amazing drummer. It's just kind of sad that he's had his issues with heroin. Just love. Did Steve Albini produce this, or was this Butch Vig?
I think it was Butch Vig.
Yeah, I mean, I love both those guys, both their production styles, and just this is probably up there with Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, like really getting me into the alternative sound, and maybe the Pixies and a couple others scattered here and there.
For sure.
But it's just a perfect album. The perfect album is the perfect 90s album. It's probably my favorite album from the 90s, I have to say, not just 1993.
They were a good gateway band, just like I was saying about with Jay Mascis for me and stuff. Like they like Brant was saying, like I was into Gish a lot. I remember them playing Rhinoceros on 120 and shit a lot. And it's great. Gish is still a great record, but again, this is the case of a band really coming into form, tightening things up a little bit, and listen, and Cherub Rock is up there with Running with the Devil and whatever else is one of the greatest album openers of all fucking time. Cherub Rock comes out like a ton of fucking bricks. That song has to be played at full volume all the time, man.
Yeah.
But like the deep cuts on, we all know the singles.
The deep tracks, Mayonnaise. Like the deep tracks, Mayonnaise and Geek USA and Quiet. Freaking just amazing.
So yeah, I mean, we did a Pumpkins episode. I think we did maybe it was like top 10.
I don't think I was on that one.
No, it was like me and like 3 like other like Pumpkin fanatics, because from 93 to like 95 they were my favorite band. Like they were untouchable. Everything that they did. Sure. Siamese, Pisces, double album. They were like, that's when we were finding demos. We would be like, oh, okay, like we would buy a cassette like somewhere in Manhattan of like an acoustic version of Mayonnaise, and you're like, holy shit, this is the greatest thing of all time. I bought Euphoria, which was the videotape, the home video. I remember
I used to buy all the singles and Peel sessions of them, and then they fucking released that Pisces. I'm like, God damn it! I fucking hunted all this shit down. Now you fucking put it out like this. Bastards.
So I got this around the same time that I got Hum. You'd prefer an astronaut, and they were both like, I'm like, holy shit, these are like
sonically epic,
sonically ridiculous. But yeah, man, everything about it, from the pretty vocals of Cherub Rock to like the rockin' riff of like Quiet to then Today, fucking Rocket, Hummer, Soma. Like when it kicks in at the end of Soma, it's just like, holy shit, Geek USA riff. This record really was like a flex of like, we just made like the greatest rock record of the last, like, God knows how many years. So yeah, Siamese Dream, man, rock and roll. All right, so 1983, also movies. We were all probably just getting over the mom and pop stuff, even though there was some shit around there. Probably watching the squiggly lines on Spice TV or like Playboy TV. Going to movies to watch a lot of action movies. The Schwarzeneggers, Stallones, all that other stuff. Blockbuster was probably a thing by now for sure. And so let's talk movies. I picked 5 movies. We all picked 5 movies. They don't have to be the best. We could just talk about them. So Brant, give me something that you picked.
Yeah, so to go back to my not knowing what I wanted to do in 1993, I came up with the genius idea that I was going to be a filmmaker after I got kicked out of school the second time and started going to Suffolk Community College and Southampton College and just basically not declaring a major, just taking any film class that they offered, like women in film and whatever, foreign films or whatever, and taking all those classes with the intents and purposes of getting into NYU film school. Or I ended up getting into USF film school and lasting about 4 weeks and getting kicked out of my third college. So there went the dream of being a filmmaker. So I was heavily living at home and basically going to the movies at least once a week and going to Blockbuster 4 or 5 days a week and just watching film upon film upon film. So I'm going to kick it off with Nightmare Before Christmas is my number 5.
Oh
That's
yeah.
what I got.
I was a Tim Burton junkie. I loved stop motion and just love Christmas and love Halloween are my 2 favorite holidays. So it was just like the perfect storm for me at the time of a genius filmmaker, my 2 favorite holidays and stop motion, which, and I still love it to this day. And I still watch it on the regular around the holidays.
Langan, that's your number 5?
That's my number 5 too. And like Brant, in that same period, I wanted to be a filmmaker as well. And me and Brant, like actually, we went to the same high school, but in the film class, that's Suffolk. That's when I think we got to know each other the best. It was like a history of film where we watched all the old John Ford shit, Stagecoach, and fucking The Nook of the North, and all that shit. But I had the same dreams,
I remember
I love stop motion. What's that?
Yeah. Who Framed Roger Rabbit was on the cover of the textbook. I remember for that Suffolk County Community College class.
Oh yeah,
I remember that.
Good memory, man.
Well,
but yeah, so I go ahead.
I was gonna say we all wanted to, especially around 93, 94. The Tarantino stuff, Kevin Smith. Once me and my friends saw like Clerks, we saw Reservoir Dogs, stuff like that. It's like, let's make movies, because it seemed like especially Reservoir Dogs and Clerks, you're like, that doesn't it's very hard to make, but it didn't look like Commando or some shit.
It wasn't elaborate. It wasn't like it was basically based around conversations and shit, like you felt like you could write and stuff. And I went to Binghamton for a semester and a half, but like that was all avant-garde shit and like didn't pan out. But anyway, back to Nightmare Before Christmas. Love stop motions, Halloween, Christmas, perfect. And I hate musicals with a fucking passion. But Danny Elfman, I love the songs on this one, and Hedwig and the Angry Inch get a pass for me. That's it. Don't come to me with any other fucking.
Those are 2 good passes. So this is on my list too, so I'll just talk about it now. Just brilliant. I remember the first time we went to go see it was in Coram. And we all walked there. I think we walked there because we didn't drive yet, and we took acid, and we walked, and then we watched this movie. We were all just tripping out. We brought our friend Molly that wasn't really used to hanging out with degenerates and taking drugs and walking to movie theaters. So that was interesting. But wow, what a great movie, great concept. It still holds up. You could put it on now, and just the actual plot of it, the execution, it's that animation looks better than 99% of the Marvel and DC movies that come out. It's 100%. Like I'd rather watch that than like whatever stupid like video game movie,
Oh God, fuck all those fucking superhero movies. Seriously, fucking get the fuck out of here with that shit. I totally agree with Martin Scorsese, but I don't want to digress into that.
And Tarantino's about to be canceled for his hatred of all comic book movies.
First of all, no one can get canceled that has a fan base. Tarantino has a fan base. Like that's like we're all Tarantino fans. That's like us being like, oh, you know what? We can't listen to.
God.
Yeah, so we'll never. As long as you have a fan base that cares about you, it doesn't matter. It's only like fickle people that are like 19 or 18. They're like, oh, he doesn't like Marvel movies, so therefore I won't watch any of the movies that I never watched anyway. Fuck that shit. Give me your next, Brant.
My next, let's see here. All right, let's go down the line that I have. I didn't really number them out, but let's go with the Bronx Tale. Goodfellas junkie at the time, just still to this day a Goodfellas junkie. I still think it's flips and flops between Pulp Fiction and Goodfellas is my favorite movie of all time. Like depends on what week or whether I watch it, which one I watch that week or month or whatever. But anyway, so love De Niro. Obviously, this is his directorial debut or second movie, or
no, I don't know. Yeah, maybe
he directed but
I feel it doesn't.
I think
matter.
It might be, but I love it. I mean, I don't think it holds up as well as Goodfellas and some of the other mob movies, but just still one of my, again, sorry guys, I didn't like really dive too deep into the movies like I did with the films.
It doesn't matter. Just say whatever you want to say about it.
Yeah, Chaz Palminteri wrote it, or did he direct it? I can't even remember.
I'm checking it out.
It doesn't matter.
I think Chaz Palminteri wrote it and De Niro directed
Director Robert De Niro, story by Chaz.
Yeah, so, and I just love that scene. My favorite scene is the scene in the bar with the motorcycle gang comes in, and they lock the door behind him and proceed to just kick the living crap out of him. It's just amazing.
Only in movies will someone who's about 500 pounds, be able to have the cardio to fight a motorcycle gang. But
I still say now you can't leave. Like it comes up in conversation often. Yeah, actually, more often than you think from a 30-year-old film.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you a lot of quotables. Sonny had 5 fingers, but he only used tree. In the bathroom with you. A lot of stuff in that, man, was just really great. And I remember seeing.
Is there better casting than that kid at looks wise to Robert De Niro? It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like crazy.
Be his son. They have the same goddamn face and nose and fucking everything.
Yeah.
And then awesome in The Sopranos too.
Yeah. Well, actually, are we talking about Lilo or the young kid?
Lilo. I'm talking about Lilo. Yeah, he was in The Sopranos, the second season of Sopranos. The one.
Yeah.
That guy. Side note: that guy. When I was working at CPI as a barback, I was dragging the garbage out to go throw in the dumpster, and he was by the back door with a friend of his. I don't remember. This was like later '90s because he didn't really go. He got the Sopranos gig, but he didn't do shit. I think he got in trouble or jail or some shit.
He's dead.
He was by the back door. This was in the '90s, but he was by the back door asking me to get in the back door, and he gave the, do you know who I am? Like shit. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And that was the end of it. I went through my garbage out. That shit was sad as
CPI. Fuck. The power you wielded at CPI.
You should have been like, you're the singer of Warrant, right?
You shot Encino Man down. You gave Vince Neil a ride home, didn't you?
So
I had a lot of fun with some has-been fans.
Anyway, this guy, Lilo Brancato, also is Colombian. He was born in Colombia. He's adopted by Italian family. He got in very big trouble it was like a robbery, something gone wrong.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of time, but he got out. Now he's doing good. Okay, I think he's been on a few podcasts, and he's got his life straight. I always see him on Instagram and shit. So, but anyway,
good for him.
Did we get to Langan? Langan, your next pick.
I got Carlito's Way. you guys might have. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of overlap on this stuff. But and Carlito's Way is interesting for me because I don't 100%. I love certain aspects of it so much, and there's a couple of things like I really hate the love interest. I don't buy their fucking relationship whatsoever. I think she's so painfully miscast as his girlfriend. It makes no fucking sense to me. But
Yeah.
getting past that, the performances of we got, Al Pacino playing Latino again, even though he's not, we haven't seen that since Scarface, but puts us in that headset a little bit. But Sean Penn is the lawyer, fucking one of his greatest roles.
That's
Luis
brilliant.
Guzman, fucking hilarious. Got Viggo Mortensen playing Latino too. Yeah. I can't
Yeah,
home. I
Yeah.
still say
so we still say that. Me and Brian, my friend,
everything.
me and my friend Brian Casal, shout out to him. Well, we used to do that in Menace to Society all the time, but it was like, look at me, I can't halt. Like it's so good, man. Vigo was so good in
We
that.
always call it. We like don't go all loving on me, man. Don't go all
Yeah.
loving.
Yeah.
um, Great quotes in that movie too. But Sean Penn might have taken it. Like I think he did
Yeah.
the best.
Genius.
Yeah,
And of course Al Pacino playing Latino, but that's okay because John Leguizamo does the flip flop. So we got the trade off. We got Leguizamo playing
that's true.
Italian and Pacino playing the Hispanics. They made that even
Yeah.
trade.
Benny Blanco from the Bronx.
That's right.
I had a friend Benny Darosky. That's what he became. That's what is his name.
Benny Blanco.
It's
Yeah,
over. You're Blanco now forever because it was just so damn catchy. But just a fun movie. Just a fun movie. One of those movies. If it's on TV, I'm stopping. And it's on TV a lot.
Yeah.
good one. So here's where I definitely took a detour because as time went on, there's two picks on my list that as time goes on and practical effects seem to be less and less in certain movies, there's movies from the 90s that I really love now. So Jason Goes to Hell came out in 1993.
You
And
in this fucking movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, if you actually watch it, it's just batshit crazy. The gore, so like the very beginning, they blow up Jason Voorhees. They blow him up. They're like, you spend 8 movies wondering why they didn't just blow this fucking guy up. So the SWAT team blows him up, and then they bring him to the coroner, and I guess his heart is still beating, and then the coroner takes a bite of that heart, and then from
As you
there
do.
he he he
That's what corners do.
As one might do.
it's he becomes Jason, and then from there Jason just goes body jumping, and it's if you appreciate just violence and gore the way the 80s did it and some of the 90s direct to video, even though this was direct to video, wasn't a very successful movie, needless to say, but I have a big love and affinity for Jason Goes to Hell. It was the first movie through New Line, I think, so they couldn't use Friday the 13th anymore, so they had to start using Jason X, Jason Goes to Hell, and all that other shit. And it's great. If you ignored, the ninth installment in a series, which for the most part most people did, and any of this sounds exciting, I suggest that you go watch that. I'm pretty sure it's up on Netflix right now. So,
Yeah.
Brant,
Number 3, Tombstone.
good one.
Um, Val
Still
Kilmer,
never seen
genius
it.
performance. Kurt Russell, I love. I mean, I think this was the beginning of his because I love them in the Hateful Eight. I think he's sort of doing the same like voice as in the Hateful Eight. So this is like the beginning of the Kurt Russell um, Western phase, I guess. Just a fun movie. I loved it. I did not see it in the theater. I remember I was renting a place with some friends from college on Long Island for the summer, and they had a bootleg copy or release copy that had not for commercial sale, like scrolling throughout the entire movie. And I just remember watching it on that, and then we'd watch it pretty much every day because we didn't have cable. in that little cottage, and just love that movie to the day. And again, another, like Langan said, if it's playing, and it's playing very often on every on channels, I'll stop and watch it, and just some great quotable lines.
Yeah, very very cool. Great cast. When you think of a movie like Young Guns, it had a great cast as well. It was very cartoonish, very silly,
Yeah.
very enjoyable. Tombstone was an actually very good movie with a very good cast, and I don't even give a fuck about westerns, but that was very good. So Langan, next.
I got Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. Just a perfect, tight written comedy with Bill Murray doing what he does, like, is better than anybody, of being like bitterly sarcastic, but has a character that like you can care for. I don't know. There's a certain Bill Murray style that he's perfect for, that can have drama, comedy, easily shift gears between both of them. And it's just a great premise. It's such a good premise. I mean, I'm sure it was done before that in some other time, but you always hear, oh, that's a rip off of Groundhog Day or something. Groundhog Day was like a template for that time, playing with the
Yeah.
time, but just a fun, great comedy. And I watched it with my son like within the last year, and it still holds up amazing. It's perfect.
Yeah, I love a good time hop movie for sure. Recently, speaking of Bill Murray being sarcastic, I had my girlfriend who's 8 years younger watch Quick Change for the first time, and she fucking loved it. You know,
Yeah.
I put it on, and it's always the same thing. She's like, "Oh my god," she's like, "This movie's from 1990. I don't want to watch this," and I'm like, "Whatever." And then I guess slowly she got engaged, and then from there, now she does that "Where do," like that Tony Shalhoub thing in the cab where he like
Yeah.
keeps turning to them. Okay, so here's another one of those picks that I was talking about. 1993 had Return of the Living Dead 3. If you know this podcast, you know that I champion this movie a lot. Recently just added back onto Shudder. I hated this movie when it came out. I thought it was terrible. I fucking hated it because it wasn't Return of the Living Dead 1 and 2. And this movie was a direct-to-video movie, so it was low budget. And then as time went on, I realized it was Brian Usna who directed it. I appreciated the absolute ridiculous violence and gore that I think Steve Johnson did some stuff. Maybe Mad Screaming George did. Just the creations of gore and violence in this movie. There's a zombie or that has like his spine yanked out and his head. Like, if you watch it, it's visually amazing. Like, it's just visually amazing. Um, It's got Sarah Douglas, one from Superman 2, so it's got star power. It's got the grandfather from Charles in Charge, so it's definitely, and I'll tell you this: if you don't believe me, watch the very beginning zombie. This really tall, skinny, lanky zombie that they get in like the first like zombie exchange that they revive. Now he is what you call casting. He frightening looking. So it turns out they found a homeless guy and they gave him, whatever. I don't know, they gave him money or food or whatever, and they made him play a zombie. And when you see him, you're like, yeah, this dude looks like he's lived a very hard fucking life. But it was absolutely amazing. So Return of the Living Dead 3 is a 1993 movie that I will pick. And if you're listening to this, please just watch it so I can stop talking about it. Brant.
All right, my 1 and 2 are sort of in the Pulp Fiction and Goodfellas category. They flip and flop from time to time.
We
So
probably all have the same too.
I'll start.
Gotta
Yeah.
be.
So I'll go with what number 2 is right now: Dazed and Confused.
Sure. All right. So
That's my one.
all right. So it's Days and
I
Confused
mean,
and
the,
True
the last
Romance.
two movies we will all have is right.
It's true.
True
Okay.
Romance.
So
True
so
Romance and Dazed and Confused.
so
Yeah.
let's. I have. Where do you have True Romance, Langan?
True Romance 2,
Me
Dazed
me
1.
too. Me
But
too.
it easily could, those
Let's
two movies are
let's talk True Romance and then we'll close out with Days and Confused. So True Romance, Brad.
right on.
Perfect. Yeah, True Romance. Tarantino junkie from the get-go. Once I saw Reservoir Dogs, just I was all in and was gonna be dedicated to watching religiously his films moving forward. Just from an hour and a half of a film just rocked my world. So True Romance, he obviously wrote. I don't think he really takes credit for it. I mean, I think he does take credit for it more, obviously more than what's that crappy Oliver Stone one, Unnatural Born Killers.
Yeah.
But I think this was the first thing Tarantino wrote when he got out to L.A., and it's loosely based on his life, I believe, or like his dream life, or
I think there's a lot of the connections is basically it's him, so kind of like like the
yeah,
movies, the Elvis thing, but I think it's just like a jumbo of stuff because like
yeah,
technically Natural Born Killers was like the next thing. It's like them two. So this was like Natural Born Killers was like
yeah.
the couple in the sequel and shit like that. So I think it's just a universe he made up in his head, basically. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Except for Spicoli, I think Brad Pitt's the best stoner character ever in
they
the history of film.
they were
Maybe
they
maybe
were
Cheech and
here.
Chong might
They
beg to
were
differ,
here, and now
but
they're
The honey
there.
bear bong. It's got the honey bear bong.
yeah,
The cast of this film alone, I mean, it's full of I mean, it works as a whole film, but individual scenes that are just so memorable. Gary Oldman, on Any White Boy Day. We
Yeah,
got Sam Jackson doing a barely anything. There's like a bunch of guys that are in this movie that are barely like, the
yeah,
Chris Penn, Sam Jackson,
I,
Gandolfini blew up. I think got Tony Soprano
yeah.
from that
Gandolfini,
scene of him beating.
The Dennis Hopper Christopher Walken thing is legendary.
Yep,
amazing.
it's legend. It's one of the greatest
Yeah,
film scenes. I think a dialogue and two actors improvising a lot of it too, or at least at the end with the cantaloupe and the eggplant. I
Yeah,
think we're improvised, but I mean, it's as good as you get. It's you probably play. It's being played in the acting schools somewhere right now, like on how to do it.
yeah,
It's
and the pure viciousness of Gandolfini and Patricia Arquette fighting,
yeah,
vicious. That was
yep.
pure, like that felt so real. You know,
Hmm. I
yeah,
thought he got Tony Soprano's like that. Wasn't that scene basically what led to him
I
yeah. I
getting
bel
think
picked,
yeah,
or like his performance? Because he had that moment where he kind of respects her, and he's got this twist, fucked up smile on his face when this horrific thing is going down. Yet this guy can smile, of
yeah,
that dichotomy,
yep.
which kind of emphasizes this whole character he played in that show. But yeah, it's a fucking masterpiece. Makes me I want to put it on right
yeah,
now, actually.
Balky Bartakamos,
yeah.
getting the cocaine. Like when she throws the cocaine, that's one of my favorite gifs to use on Facebook, where he's just sitting there smiling with the fucking coke all over his face. It's just great. Michael Rappaport,
Yeah,
like
Hmm.
just really, really simple story, which is kind of like a Tarantino thing. Like when you really break down the actual like point A to point B, you're like, oh, nothing is like so profound, but like it's the journey and the characters and the shit that like the dialogue that's mixed in there that you're just like, wow, this is just so entertaining. But in all
Hmm.
reality, it's like, boy meets girl, they go sell coke and then they try, it's it's a plot that's been used in the 80s nonstop, like I mean shit, Samurai Cop, right? they
Always.
they bring out some guy from San Diego to fight the katana, but it didn't really work out as well as any of these other movies. But it's like,
Nah.
yeah, True Romance is a goddamn masterpiece and the testament of a good movie, just like the number one we're going to talk about, is Dazed and Confused. It's like you could put you could put the TV on, and anywhere in that movie that it's on, whether it's the beginning, middle, ending, whatever, you're just like, oh, I'm going to sit down and like, if I have 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I'm going to watch it for that amount of time. So
Mhm.
let's talk Dazed and Confused, Brant.
yeah. I mean, just one of the greatest opening scenes in the history of film. Sweet emotion, just freaking all the muscle cars in the parking lot, and
Mhm.
just introduction to all the characters. Um, just amazing soundtrack. Of course, I think you guys talked about that a while ago on the last one that I was supposed to be a part of, or about.
Oh, yeah, we
I
did a
think
whole
Sweet
show on.
Emotion made someone's list, and
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yes,
The
yeah,
yeah, it was
opening.
mine. Yeah, yep.
just that. I mean, I Hurricane was on mine just because just that scene of like Matthew McConaughey walking into the
Yep.
pool hall and just like
Mhm.
in reality he's pretty much a loser, but he's freaking king walking into
Whoa.
that pool hall, and just
Hold
the
on.
look on his fucking face of like I fucking rule this town
Yeah.
is just freaking amazing. And like his boys behind him walking into the pool, the next in line, and then the next in line after that, the just a brilliant movie. I mean, Linklater, I love Slackers just from the film student in me. I love Slackers, but now that I look back on Slackers, it's not a very good flick,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I think I could.
I
But
agree.
I think I could genuinely sit in front of my TV and recite the whole movie at this
yeah,
point. Like
It's
absolutely,
one of
without a
those
doubt.
films.
it's between that and Almost Famous, where I just sit there and like whatever
Yeah,
they say, it's just like I'll put it on. I've been watching Almost Famous like every day lately, just 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there. But
I mean, Ben Affleck as the Dick is just fucking genius. The guy's such an asshole, and he just plays
totally.
it so well. Just an amazing freaking movie.
yeah, when
Parker
you
Posey is the best bitch ever in the history of the freaking world. Like it's just like perfect casting, like perfect.
I
They
love
played their
the night
parts.
in a life aspect. I love night in the films that take place over the course of one evening, like Under the Silver Lake, like we talk about all the time, or certain films. I love that scenario, and like how, and especially what's amazing about it is anybody who was of that age in the 70s always say how realistic this movie is towards like the vibe of the 70s and stuff. But even as me a generation like later and stuff, there's just this universal aspect of like being young and having a night where you didn't have responsibilities and the world was like your oyster to have this adventure of like
It's pretty
events, and
realistic
especially
to.
the
Sorry.
town we grew up in.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I was just gonna
it could
say it's
have
pretty
been
much
that,
a Friday or Saturday night in our town during the 80s and
yeah,
90s.
or it's probably
Any
any
town.
town.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of people have that feeling, and I
Yeah.
think that's why it like universally connects like generationally. There's just an aspect of being. It's like a love letter to being like young, and having the
Yeah.
night to take for your own. It's just beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like to every character. It didn't matter, like fucking Carl's mom with the shotgun.
Yeah, she was
Like,
ride or die as fuck.
she
Everybody
was,
wants a mom like that.
yeah, she was just like,
Pull a gun
nah,
on a kid.
not on my watch. Fucking the teacher, 50 of you were coming on a mission, 25 of you ain't coming back. It's just like, all right. Ginny
I,
talking about. I always pull that 4th of July quote whenever she says it. Whenever you guys out there celebrating, whatever, blah blah blah. Just remember, a whole bunch of white aristocratic men didn't want to pay their taxes.
yeah.
All right, woo.
I think Sam mentioned this on one of the earlier podcasts about why the hell is that kid leaving making out with a freaking chick at the dance to go freaking
Yes,
like every time he does it, I'm like, where the fuck are you going,
Uh,
kid? Like
Hirschfelder, yeah, like
Hirschfelder.
that girl was like probably one of the most attractive women in the actual movie, and they're like, hey man, we got to go to just go walk around. But I mean,
Yeah,
I
and
don't.
maybe get
you
the
know what
shit
was
kicked out of us.
it was representative though, because like you'd have a friend that like back then when you were that young that thought he knew it all about girls or whatever, but looking back, like he didn't know fucking, you
Yeah,
guys didn't know shit,
yeah, it's
you
great,
know.
and the mind fuck of it too. Like when you think about it, so we're 1993 watching this movie that took place or was supposed to take place 15 years earlier. So that's like 78, and it's just funny. You associate 1993 with this movie, but it's really 78, and now you tack on like an extra 30 years.
Mm, yeah, it's
You're
crazy.
like,
Yeah,
holy
crazy.
shit, I can't wait to die. Anyway, I'm going to Jersey. Hey man, this was been a fun recap of 1993. I'm sure we'll do one for 2003 next because that sounds like fun. Brant, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks
man.
for having me again. Appreciate it. Love you guys.
Got a website there, Dry Hop.
Yeah, www.dryhopchicago.com,
Yeah, just send me the
yeah,
link because like
corridorchicago.com and crushedbygiants.com.
no one
Those are the
listens to
three
the end.
restaurants. Yeah.
Oh, definitely send me everything. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Send it to me on Messenger and I'll post the
Yeah,
links.
yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Guys.
All
I was
right.
trying to
Thanks,
keep it like
guys.
a Tonight Show vibe, like I was at, for those
Yeah.
plugs, like
Yeah.
Jackie Martling or something.
Exactly.
Yo,
Yeah.
the plug thing, like
Hot dogs and donuts
yeah.
at your local record store.
Like the plug thing on the Stern show was funny. Like, like that was like the big deal that like you needed to like plug, and now it's like
Yeah.
no one.
Jackie had it in his contract, his plugs
Yeah, like when
to
I'm
get.
listening to like a podcast, like the last thing, it's like, no, I'm not. I'm just gonna look for a link
And
on the.
Fred would play that carny music,
Yeah, yeah,
fucking carnival music behind it. That was great. But
yeah.
anyway, thanks for
Yes.
coming on, Brent.
All right.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Later, man.
All right, later.
All right, bye.
Bye.